Why? Couldn't find my hammer. This just isn't cutting it. Trying to beat the stupid parts of this movie out of my brain so that I don't think about them and I think about the great parts of this movie. Because that's really what the problem with this film is that it's two films. It's trying to be two different things at once, and it's succeeding in some parts and just utterly failing miserably in other parts. The first thing I want to say is we'll talk about the good things here, and that is the acting, mostly. Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, Dane DeHaan. They're so great in this film, and they are believable as the characters that they portray. And you actually feel that they are the characters and not actors on the screen. You get wrapped up in the, kind of drama between Peter Parker and Gwen about, he's fighting with the things from the first film where he's like, no, I don't want to be beaten by you, and she's like, no, yes, we can be together and be in love, and then she's like, pushes him away, and then he comes back and blah, blah, blah. I won't explain the whole thing. But I really did get wrapped up into that drama. It was mostly because of the acting. The writing was not bad. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was mostly the acting that brings you there. And that is the biggest success of this film, that Andrew Garfield makes me believe that he is Peter Parker when he's in costume and when he's out of costume. The other actors that were in the film were not as great as these three. In fact, I would say Jamie Foxx is almost terrible, and Paul Giamatti is laughable. Sally Field is just kind of there, and Dennis Leary is literally just there. He doesn't say anything in the film, but he's in the film. So, without giving too many spoilers away, and then we'll talk about spoilers, like real specific things in a little bit, but without giving spoilers away, I would say that the biggest problem with this film is that it is really childish in its writing. I would say immature. It has immature writing. It feels a lot like the comics have felt recently, which, I mean, isn't really a good thing in my opinion, because I think Dan Slott is a terrible writer. I have read all of the recent Spider-Man comics, and I'll make another video talking about the comics later. There are so many problems with his writing. The big overarching story is always really interesting, and you get wrapped into it, but the details are just dumb. And that's the problem with this film. The details are just dumb. There are shots where there's Spider-Man fighting a villain, and people are standing around gawking at this, and then they're making insults at the villain, like it was wrestling or some kind of cage match, something like that. It was terrible, because in reality, people are going to be running and screaming away if there's a guy shooting lightning out of his hands and things are exploding. That was dumb. And then there's another scene near the beginning of the film where there's a car chase going through New York City, which, I mean, nowadays I would say the idea is kind of laughable in itself, just because of how many cars are in New York City, but it was a little suspenseful. It was cool. And this truck is plowing through different cars and stuff, but there are almost 30 cop cars chasing after him. The idea that all of the cop cars would just be chasing after this truck going in one way, and there wouldn't be anyone trying to set up blockades in front of it, the cops wouldn't be coordinating with each other, they would maybe only have 2 or 3 cars chasing after it, there wouldn't be 30, because just think of the idea oh, did nobody see the Blues Brothers where every freaking car just piles on top of each other because that's what's going to happen when you got 30 cars all rushing at breakneck speed. That was stupid. And Jamie Foxx's character, like, that's another problem I have with the film, is that character in itself is just stupid, and they try to play him off like he's supposed to be some kind of big genius, but he's just an idiot. He's a whiny, needy, insecure idiot. And the character is just not likable. He's not threatening either. Really, it's just really bad, and it makes me sad because I want to beat out that part of the film, because the rest of the film was Spider-Man. It was what I want to see from a Spider-Man film. And even though I knew what the ending was going to be, because I've read tons of Spider-Man comics, you know, I've read almost all of them, and there's at least, well, there's 700 Amazing Spider-Man, and I haven't read all of them, but I've read the majority of them, and the new stuff, I've read a lot of that, and it felt like Spider-Man at many points. Like, there were parts where I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want out of this film. And then there's other parts where I felt like I was watching Batman and Robin or Batman and Forever, and I was expecting nipples to start growing off of Spider-Man's costume. It was so bad. So I really hope that someone does an edit, like the Phantom edit for this film, because you could take out an hour of this film and it would be a great film to watch. I really wish that the Electro character just was not in this film at all. He's really one of the worst parts of the film, and he's the main villain, when the Green Goblin should have been the main villain. We should have spent more time with Dane DeHaan, and there should have been more time of him being the Green Goblin, because it's just really rushed into it too quickly, and I really would have wanted to see more of him in the suit. Like, he seemed kind of menacing when he was actually the Green Goblin. It was cool. I was like, ooh, this is creepy, but, and then boom, it's over, and you're like, what? 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 So, now I'm gonna hold for a minute, and we're just gonna think about, Bruce Lee. These are not the best films ever made, but these are awesome films because they're basically simple films. And now I'm going to talk about spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers, just stop watching. Thanks for watching. Next time maybe I'll talk about the recent comic books. So getting into the nitty-gritty of this, you know, like, Spider-Man fans know what's going to happen to Gwen. And Gwen dies at the end of the film. It's a classic storyline from the 70s. It's already been spoiled all over the internet. So I'm not really feeling bad about spoiling this. So the way that they did it, I thought was interesting, but it's like I said before, there should have been more time with the Green Goblin. The whole film really should have just been Peter Parker, Gwen Stacy, and Harry Osborn. There shouldn't have been any more real characters than that. That is the biggest problem. I didn't care at all about Jamie Foxx's character. Like, he was just annoying. I wanted him to die and go away right away. And they just really rushed into that whole thing between Peter and Harry. Like, there was a point where they first meet each other again, and Harry says that they haven't seen each other in 10 years, but he's supposed to be 20 years old, because they mentioned that in the film. And what kind of person, like, I don't know, maybe like these were the only two friends that each other had when they were 10 years old, but I don't know many people that reconnect after like 10 years like that. Maybe they were in contact with each other over this 10 years. Like, I know, like, when you're kids, like, it's just another friend, and so it just seemed kind of weird like that. I really wish there would have been more between those two characters. Like, you could have set it up where they have the graduation and just show like Harry and Gwen and Peter and maybe even put Mary Jane in, because they all went to high school together, and just put them all in graduation. And then you just kind of almost retcon the first film, just saying that they weren't in there, and that's okay, you know? Just they weren't part of the story, but they were going to high school together and they're all friends. It would have been believable. And that's what the story was in the comics. And they really just dropped the ball on that part. And there was no Flash Thompson in this film at all. Like, why set up his character in the first film and then not have him at all in this film? That didn't make any sense either. I would have wanted to see a little more of them like in high school, but I'm okay with them just going right to graduation and whatever. But it was a perfect chance to set up these characters, and they didn't do it. They dropped the whole relationship between Harry and Peter. It just felt really fake and really rushed. But the actors were really good with the material that they had. So, I mean, I did believe that they were friends. They actually had good chemistry together. It felt like they were friends for quite a long time. And the relationship between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, like, it felt natural. I mean, I know at this point I think they're together or whatever, but it felt really good. It felt like really real chemistry between the characters, but the material a lot of the time was just bad. So about her death, though, the ending felt really rushed. Dane DeHaan just kind of like injects the serum, and then all of a sudden, bam, he's Green Goblin, and the suit's right there. I'll just go and jump into it. Now I'm the Green Goblin, and then I'm gonna go fly after Spider-Man, and then we're gonna fight for like a couple minutes, and then Gwen's gonna die, and then Peter's gonna stand around her grave for like 5 months. And that was it. It felt so rushed. It was one of the most important parts in Spider-Man history in the comics, and they just kind of rushed through it. There should have been so much more build up towards it. I did like the foreshadowing that they did with him seeing Captain Stacy like all over the place. That was kind of cool. I did like it, but they should have set up the relationship between Peter and Harry so much more. There should have been so much more tension there, and they just shoved Electro into this, and he shouldn't have even been there at all. I don't know how many times I can say that. It felt like Batman and Robin in some ways when he was on the screen. It felt pointless and stupid, and I just didn't like it at all. So, as for my final review of this film, I would say go and see it for the 3D. The 3D is quite amazing. I had to see it in 3D just because it seemed like one of those films where the stuff will fly out at you, and it did all over the place. It was cool. The 3D was good. But otherwise, you know, if you're just going to see it to expect like a good Spider-Man story, I'd say wait until it comes out on DVD, or wait until someone hopefully does an edit of this film and just cuts Electro right out of it. Wow.